As record amounts of Bitcoin are being dumped on the market, record amounts of Bitcoin are also being pumped via the Big Nine like we've never seen before. But what if I told you that not only have we not seen the bust, but in fact, what if we haven't even seen the pre-bust? As the stock market, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ have reached new all-time highs, Bitcoin finds itself right around $40,000 US, and clearly we are seeing record amounts of Bitcoin get completely dumped via GBTC, via Grayscale, via Big Berry. But what if I told you that this actually is potentially way bigger than literally anyone could have ever imagined? So if you love pumpies, dumpies, and everything in between, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and without any further ado, let's absolutely jump into painting the picture of what exactly is happening in the markets right now. So just in 9 Bitcoin spot ETFs, the Big Nine, are buying almost 13,000 Bitcoin every single day. Only a little less than 800 new Bitcoin were created yesterday, right? On a daily basis. So this is over 10 times the amount of Bitcoin that's even created every day that these 9 Bitcoin spot ETFs are currently buying every day. This is absolutely very big. And now we're going to get into why the price hasn't been affected yet, okay? Because this is probably the biggest thing, and it's a ticking time bomb. And I truly believe that anybody, right, these spot ETFs have only been trading for, not very long, just a few weeks. I truly believe that a lot of people thought the Bitcoin spot ETFs would launch and they would just be a big fluke and it would just bring the market crashing down. And over the past week or two, those people think that they were absolutely right and they feel vindicated. But what if I told you that the exact opposite is going to happen and it's going to be the biggest switcheroo of all time? Well, more evidence for that. So Bitcoin ETFs are averaging, as I just said, around even sometimes more than 13,000 Bitcoin per day. It's only been trading for 8 days, though. That's the biggest part. This has only been trading for 8 days. And so these numbers could drastically get pumped up. The Bitcoin spot ETFs have had $20 billion of trading volume in just those first 8 days, including the $1.5 billion yesterday in a single day. It's so ginormous. BlackRock now holding about 44,000 Bitcoin, which is worth nearly $2 billion. It took Michael Saylor, 3 years to get around, I believe, like 200,000 Bitcoin. And just in a couple of days, BlackRock has gobbled up basically a fourth of that, right? Basically gobbling up 25% of Saylor's holdings. And this is just BlackRock. There's still 8 other ETFs. So this chart really nicely illustrates what exactly is happening here. So we see BlackRock, Fidelity, and all these other ETFs accumulating Bitcoin, right? However, you see GBTC at the bottom there just kind of matching all of the other ETFs with sell volume. So we see a lot of this, and that's why people are saying people are angry with Barry of GBTC, Barry Silbert. But you see that right now, a lot of the Bitcoin is being transferred. It's being mixed around. It's a lot of all of the buys that we're seeing from BlackRock, Fidelity are basically being counteracted by the massive selling coming from Grayscale. But that can't last forever. Grayscale sent another roughly $20,000 or 20,000 Bitcoin worth about $750 million to Coinbase. You can see that here, and they're continuing to do this. One commenter says, this will stabilize soon. Halving's coming, everything. But I mean, yes, it is true. This is only temporary. But the bigger picture here is that while all of this is happening, there is so much Bitcoin changing hands right now. There is a lot of Bitcoin being bought, but a lot of Bitcoin being sold, specifically like we just said, through Grayscale. The crazy part is Bitcoin is still at $40,000 US. Bitcoin is absorbing potentially the biggest sell pressure that it's ever had. Okay, so take a step back and think about that for 1 second. And British Hodl had a good opinion about this as well. 9 trading sessions since the Bitcoin spot ETF launched. Net new inflow has been about $1 billion or about $100 million per day in a market where GBTC has either been forced or emotionally are selling about 500 million in the market on a daily basis. And he's saying Bitcoin is still like holding right around 40K. He's saying that in the face of the most aggressive selling that we've probably seen, it's healthy that Bitcoin is holding where it's at. And he says, anyone else know another time where 500 million has been dumped every day for 10 days of Bitcoin? Me personally, I don't think I do really, right? I mean, I don't know if there's ever been this aggressive selling of Bitcoin before. But a year ago, 500 million of daily selling pressure for 9 trading sessions would have completely crushed Bitcoin. Absolutely. If Bitcoin was at a mere 16,000 US dollars, as it was a little over a year ago, Bitcoin would be absolutely plummeting, right? But we're not there. BlackRock and Fidelity alone have deployed probably less than 400 million of capital, he believes, in his opinion, while they're letting GBTC bleed their holdings. And that's only 0.00267% of all assets under management having been deployed by the two so far. He's saying that, this is not the time to be bearish. Now, another thing I want to highlight is CryptoCon pointing out a target of potentially $28,000 per Bitcoin as the most bearish possibility. The 200 SMA wave calls for one of the most aggressive declines out there. And now keep in mind, one of the reasons I bring this up is because I want to talk about something that's realistic, even if it's the most bearish scenario. And even though I don't think it's going to happen, I want to talk about it. But keep in mind, am I talking about a $10,000 Bitcoin? No, I'm not. Yeah, pretty much for the past 14 months. If you look at the chart, you're getting further and further and further away from $10,000 per Bitcoin. Believe it or not, most of you listening are probably like, yeah, we know we're not going to 10K. Stop talking about it. But believe me, there are still people that watch, for some reason, they watch these videos and they still believe 10,000 is possible and they want it to happen and they hate Bitcoin, right? I don't understand why anybody that hates Bitcoin would want to watch a Bitcoin video. People have their priorities completely confused. But this indicator, that SMA wave, and others like it, show Bitcoin makes its escape above and returns to the top of the wave to retest the moving average. He's saying that 38,000 may have been the low, but cycle timing and a rise of over 90% calls for more. 28,000 is the harshest end of what we can see, he says, with a more likely range in the low 30,000s, is his opinion on price. Interesting to listen to. Magza Scalping Pro, also one of the cleanest, easiest charts to look at. You can see we're in a very similar structure to even back in 2016, with the bottoms being in, okay? And if we even trade sideways or with a little bit of a downward bias for another month or two, that would literally just fit perfectly. And there's no, I'm like, I can even, if I try to convince myself, okay, let's pretend that the bearish scenario is right and we're going to 10K and we're going to a bear market for 5 years or something crazy. There is nothing. I can rack my head all day, and I do every day. There is nothing that actually makes sense for that to happen. As long as there's blood flowing in your veins and there is some signals, not even a lot, but some signals being sent in your brain, then that's the conclusion you'll come to, is that this isn't bearish, okay? Come on. Unbelievable. And we can see these fractals from the past, the previous bull markets as well. Very, very similar. Will we have one more flash crash? It's absolutely possible. It's absolutely possible. Crash, as I just said, maybe we'll crash down to 28,000 and bounce, something like that. But overall, we're very close to the beginning of a bull market, and that's the much more important thing. Jack Muller's the CEO of Strike, also pointing something out in a video, or actually in an interview, I believe on Bloomberg. Basically, Jamie Dimons are always coming out speaking against Bitcoin, calling it like for crime and everything. Jamie Dimon, aka the banker of Jeffrey Epstein, knows more about crime than anyone. When you get to a certain point where you have enough money, crime becomes legal for you, right? Jamie has been legally committing crimes for decades. Technically not legally, because he gets in trouble a little bit and then he just pays a couple million or a couple $1 billion and he's fine. But this guy is the king of fraud. He's the king of manipulation, the king of being a scammer, right? So what Jack Muller said is, what do I think about Jeffrey Epstein's banker being concerned that a distributed, decentralized, open public money could potentially be used for bad things? I don't really care. Why would anyone care? This guy has committed more crimes than anybody watching this video probably combined. Why would anyone care what this guy thinks about anything? If you have if you're aware of how ironic this is, then you would not care about what Jamie Dimon thinks. And nobody really does. But, maybe maybe your mom or your aunt or your cousin that watches like the news and they get all their opinions from talking heads. They probably think, oh, this guy on TV, he's the CEO of a bank and he said Bitcoin's bad. Okay, well, it's absolutely meaningless. It means nothing. So as we talked about, so the S&P, SPX, you can see just set another new all-time high, looking very, crazy. The NASDAQ as well. If we actually, NASDAQ, more new highs right here. Wonder if the Dow Jones, new all-time highs. Very bullish for the stock market. This is letting people get more comfortable to speculate on risk on assets. And the DXY potentially, again, running into resistance here. I think the DXY is absolutely just having a dead cat bounce right here anyway. But overall, this to me looks very bullish for the stock market, which in turn should be very bullish for the longevity of Bitcoin and the crypto space, especially as we have specific crypto-related events like the halving coming in just months that are mainly very bullish for Bitcoin. If the stock market also enters a continued bull rally exactly at the right time, guys, that is the perfect recipe. Not to mention if we actually start getting those rate cuts, if we start seeing quantitative easing later down the road, this is a perfect recipe for potential pumpage. And really looking at Bitcoin's daily chart as well. As I said, this still looks more like a bearish setup, but all we need is one big pump to reset and kind of provide momentum to this market. And you want to look at the catalysts that could maybe provide that, like the stock market doing well, right? Another big thing is that, let's say Coinbase wins their lawsuit against, or the SEC loses their lawsuit against Coinbase, which I think is more likely than it is not likely. That's going to be another crazy bullish catalyst for the space. There's so many bullish things that could happen in just the next year, but also specifically just the next few months, that it's so hard. It's incredibly hard to be bearish on this market. And sign up with Femex below if you want to buy Bitcoin, altcoins, or trade. It takes 30 seconds to sign up if you use my description or in the comments below. Without further ado, that's for me.